Hello again. This is Beginnings Part 5. I hope you've been following along. We're going to pick up right after the flood. This is the beginning of the nations. So, some important stuff to understand about this first is when Moses wrote this in Genesis, uh, he was all writing this to the people of Israel. So there are some things in here that apply specifically to the people of Israel. We need to remember that. But the facts are still the same. So I want to start off right at the end of the flood when when Noah is uh, getting off of the ark and he plants a vineyard and gets drunk. Uh, and what we see is Noah places a curse on his son Ham. Now, everyone in the world is a descendant of Shem, Ham, and Japheth. So we need to remember that. So this is going to describe kind of who those people went out to. But I want to talk about this curse first that Noah um, puts and the blessings that he puts on the other children, but the curse that he puts on Ham. It says here in Genesis chapter 9, verse 22. And Ham, the father of Canaan, so Moses is pointing out that Ham is the father of Canaan, or the Canaanite people. He's the ancestor. Saw the nakedness of his father and told his two brethren without. So there's the reason why there's the curse. Now, if we skip to verse 24, and Noah awoke from his wine and knew what his younger son had done to him. And he said, Cursed be Canaan, a servant of servants shall he be unto his brethren. So Noah is cursing the descendants of Ham. A servant of servants shall he be unto his brethren. And he said, Blessed be the Lord God of Shem, and Canaan shall be his servant. Again, Shem is the ancestor of the Semitic people. So you have the Jews in there. So they're saying all the descendants of Ham will be servants to the Semitic people. And God shall enlarge Japheth, which means make him powerful, and he shall dwell in the tents of Shem, so they're going to have a good relationship, and Canaan shall be his servant. Now, Japheth is the ancestor of all of the Gentile nations. So basically, all the nations that started to go north and settle Europe. And we see, and Noah lived after the flood 350 years. And all of the days of Noah were 950 years, and he died. And so in chapter 10, we get into the generations of Noah's sons. This is where we can see the peoples that came out of those lineages. So again, we see Shem with the Semitic people, the Jewish people, and eventually the line of Abraham comes out of there. We see Japheth, which is the Gentile nation. So you have the Greeks and the Romans and pretty much all the rest of Europe, and India included in there as well. And also we see the sons of Ham. And so verse 6, it says, and the sons of Ham, Cush, Mizraim, and Phut, and Canaan. So these lands right here, Mizraim ends up being Egypt. Canaan is Canaan. And we also see Babel come out of these lines. So Babylon ends up being a descendant of Ham. Now, the Ham's descendants are important biblically because of their relationship with the people of Israel. So, like I said, you have Babel, you have Egypt, and you have Canaan. All end up being enemies of Israel, and basically Israel is going to stomp them in some way or another. Basically, with God is going to stomp them in some way or another. So we see basically all of Israel's enemies mainly come out of the line of Ham. and that's due to this initial curse. So I want to skip. If you want to read in chapter 10, the lineages, you can go ahead and get into that. I'm not going to cover that here because it's just a lot of son of, son of, son of. Um, but it is an interesting study, and I would encourage you to do it. Now, I want to skip over to the Babel crisis. Now, Babel is the descendants of Ham, but it says in chapter 11, verse 1, and the whole earth was of one language and of one speech. And it came to pass, as they journeyed from the east, they found a plain in the land of Shinar and dwelt there. So this is all of the people together, probably led by Ham's descendants at this point, because we know that Babel is of the line of Ham. And they said to one another, "Go and let us make brick and burn them thoroughly." So they're hardening these brick, and they had brick for stone. And slime had they for mortar. So they were building brick and mortar cities. And they said, "Go, let us build a city and a tower, whose top may reach unto heaven, and let us make us a name, lest we be scattered abroad on the face of the whole earth." So what they didn't want to happen was to be scattered abroad. But they were basically, the confusion here comes of, why did God destroy, confuse their tongues and cause the tower to fall, just for them striving to make a name for themselves? Well, it was because they weren't paying attention to God. They were building this tower to the heavens. They were trying to usurp God's place, just like Adam before them, knowingly eating of the fruit. And it says in verse 5, "And the Lord God came down to see the city and the tower, which the children of men builded, and said, Behold, the people is one, and they have all one language. And they begin to do, and nothing will be restrained from them, which they have imagined to do. Let us go down, and there confound their language, that they may not understand one another's speech. So the Lord scattered them abroad from thence upon the face of the earth, and they left off to build the city. Therefore, the name of it is called Babel, and because the Lord did there confound the language of all the earth, and from thence did the Lord scatter them abroad upon the face of the earth." And so after this, we see the line of Abraham come out of the line of Shem, but everybody was all together basically as one nation, even though they were separate lines of people. They were all together, and they all spoke one language, and God confounds their languages, and you have these initial languages go out. So you have the line of Ham, the line of Shem, the line of Japheth, all go separate directions as a result of this. And God did this because they were trying to usurp his place. And so that is the beginning of the nations. You see these descendants start to found different places, and you see, just like God said, you start to see the Gentile nations become very powerful with governments. You see, blessed be the Lord God of Shem. That's God's chosen people come out of the line of Shem. And you have the line of Ham always at odds with the line of Shem, with the people of Egypt and the Babylonians and the Canaanites, which Moses specifically states there, because they're going to be facing the Canaanites when they go into the Promised Land. So that is all of the beginning of the nations. Soon we'll be getting in the next week we'll get into the beginning of God's chosen people, and we'll see God choosing Abraham as part of Thank you for watching. I know this was a short one, but short and sweet, and that was really all the information that is needed to go over. So we see where we each come from as part of that. The important thing to remember is that we all come from those lines. And although the line of Shem is God's chosen people, they're still sinful. Although Noah was walking with God and he was chosen, he found grace in the eyes of God, he still had sin. And so the sin of Adam still continues throughout all the generations. This is just after the flood, God choosing to work through those descendants. And really we see that right now God is still working with humanity as a whole. Once Abraham comes along, God works through a specific family and then specific people. So thank you guys. I'll see you for the next one.